everyone, and welcome to our channel. And today I'll be reading a multi-character extruder by me. So let's get into it. Cyno. You and Cyno were not very heavy on PDA, but that didn't mean it did not exist entirely. It did, just to an extent where it wasn't that heavy. And also, he much better prefer to do things with you at home, without having everybody else watch your every move. But sometimes it appeared like it was necessary to do things outside too, to show enough, to let them know how comfortable you were together, and how they should not interfere. And today was one of these days. He's caught people's eyes, and the way they look at you, like they want to snatch you away at any moment, and he's protective of you. So, in due time, he eventually just sold himself to it, his hands taken down to your thigh, wrapping around it, just to give it a little squeeze, as you were talking to some other guy. You're blushing now, and even though they noticed, it wasn't like they could point it out, but it was enough of a tell for them to stay away from you, and not try to get any closer. Because really, he will not like any of it. Childe. Childe's much different to Cyno in the fact that he will jump up on any opportunity to show off, and this to him was just another opportunity to show off how close the two of you really were. He wanted everyone to know. He wanted to parade your love to everyone, and he was not shy of it. If he were, though, he might tone it down a bit, but not entirely. Because like I said, showing off is a part of him at this point. He wants everyone to know. But when people also go aboard with being a little bit too teasing or too focused on you, then he's more than willing to rein it back into them and tell them just how close the two of you are, and how they should never ever think to intervene. And he would do it just by being a little bit over the top, by perhaps kissing you in front of others, or squeezing your thigh like he did right now. You know, just to tell them off, in a polite way, though he doesn't really care about being polite, and more about showing you off to others. You'd be standing there, staring, and blushing brightly, while he just smiles, asking what's wrong also innocently, but he knows exactly what. Honestly, he was such a tease sometimes. So I would recommend getting him back in the way that he's doing right now, and teasing him in front of others too, because perhaps that was the only way he would understand. Albedo. Albedo's not a tease, or actually that was a lie. He's very much a tease, but he doesn't care about others. However, since the two of you are free and you're watching one of his assistants, it didn't matter that they were in the room, according to Albedo, because he was going to test out his theory if touching you really made him calm. He put a hand in your thigh, but then it wasn't enough. So then, he began to squeeze. And that's when your assistant turned around and was a little bit stunned when looking at you. Thankfully, Albedo was able to deflect it quickly, and smiled, even laughing a little bit at how shy the two of you were. He honestly did not make a big deal out of it, and he thought it was something you should get used to as well. Perhaps even you two, because he was not going to leave you out of it. Venti is actually not as well carefree as he seems. He's a little bit possessive, but he doesn't show it. He doesn't like to seem that way, but it's true. It's a part of him that he cannot fully quite hide, no matter how well he tries to conceal it, because it's there. And like I said, it's part of him. He can't just completely ignore it. So when others start looking at you and acting way too familiar while he's sitting around, it wasn't like he could just attack them, and he doesn't want to either. They're clueless. So that's why he will sit next to you, putting a hand on your thigh and squeezing a little bit, making you blush, and making sure to be quite obvious with this, just to give them a hint. Thankfully, they took it and were quite quick to leave, leaving the two of you alone, without anyone bothering you. Then afterward, he would kiss your cheek, apologizing for making your friends go away, and telling you he didn't mean to, even though he absolutely did. Scaramouche. Scaramouche is not really subtle about hiding anything, and he doesn't even care enough to hide. In fact, he likes to be plainly obvious because then, when you don't listen, he has a perfect excuse to commit some violence. I'm not going to exactly specify because I can't, but you already know what he's got in his mind, so I don't need to, do I? And that's why sometimes, if he's really on his wits' end and extremely jealous, he'll start being affectionate with you in public, which was kind of unusual of him. Even though he wasn't shy of anything, he was a little bit shy of this. He just wasn't used to it, and he was not used to people staring at him for that particular reason. But he did it anyway. He put a hand on your thigh, laying it there for a little bit, and then squeezed it ever so slightly, making you muffle a squeak behind your hands, shocked and surprised, a blush on your face, all while the servants struggled to look away from the scene. They were not going to look, because the moment they focused and looked a little bit too much, they knew it. Their days would be over, and this was only a warning from him. Tighnari. Tighnari would only do this to tease you. He didn't care about others, and he's very blunt, so if someone was making him jealous, or being rather rude to you, you might as well just go tell them, and deal with them personally. He doesn't care enough to be subtle. But when you're with others that you're a little bit shy in front of, or new people, he might do something like this, where he would just have his hand sneak around your thigh and squeeze it a little bit, making you blush brightly, and you'd have to act like nothing was wrong, while he would just smile to himself, acting completely innocent like he just did nothing. He was honestly a sneak like this. But then again, this trickery and weird personality of his was part of why I loved him in the first place. So you will accept it. Sometimes loving someone means accepting them even when they were a menace like this. And this was a case like that. What can you say though? You really did love him. So there wasn't anything you can do about it, was there?